Hey group, so this lesson is all about cellular respiration and photosynthesis. So this is an extremely important lesson when it comes to learning about the human body. And the reason is because this is all about energy. Okay, these two processes that we're going to talk about are the reason that we have energy to walk and to wave and to blink and to breathe and to do anything. We need energy, and we probably don't really even think about it, but right now as I'm talking, all my cells are going through the cellular respiration process and creating energy for me. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that happens. So we just talked about like energy comes out. Okay, we get this energy is coming out of our bodies in a variety of ways. But I want to talk about, well, what goes in? Okay, so what makes that energy? So there's two things that make energy for us. Okay, the first is glucose, which we get from food. Okay, that's one of the reasons that we eat or we don't eat. We feel tired because our glucose level is low. You need food to start making energy, but glucose by itself won't do it. So the second thing you also need is O2, or just oxygen. Okay, so those are the two magic ingredients in our bodies, glucose and oxygen, that come together and they give us the energy. Okay, but you probably notice there's two other boxes. So along with energy, it also creates two other things that we don't necessarily need at all times. So the first is carbon dioxide. So when they go through this process and we get this energy that's wonderful, and we now have the energy to talk, but then we have this carbon dioxide, which is really a poison to our body. It's a byproduct. So luckily our bodies come up with a system of breathing or exhaling, which gets rid of that carbon dioxide. So these two come in, we get energy and carbon dioxide. And the other thing we need is water, which we do need. And we use some of that, but also we actually exhale a lot of it too. And you'll notice this on like a cold day, if you're ever outside and you breathe out, along with carbon dioxide, out comes some of the water that we made in this process, because it kind of condenses, you can see it. So this is cellular respiration. We take in glucose and oxygen and we get energy. And we also make some carbon dioxide and water along the way that we either get rid of or sometimes we use in our body as well. Now, this guy, the mitochondria, this is where it all happens. This is the most important part, because in our cells, this doesn't happen everywhere in our cells. Some cells have no mitochondria, but most have hundreds or thousands of mitochondria that are constantly making this energy, or taking in the glucose and the oxygen to give us energy. Okay, so this is what the mitochondria does for us in our cells. They are the ones who make the energy. Now, two questions come up, right? Where'd the glucose come from? We know it came from food, but like, where did that get the glucose from, you know what I mean? And then the oxygen too, like where does that come from? And we just said, okay, we get rid of carbon dioxide and the water, but where does that go? Okay, it could just, we don't have this huge excess of carbon dioxide anymore. It must be used by something. So that's where the leaves come into play. Okay, our plants are crazy important, and I put leaves instead of just plants because the leaves in particular are where almost all this process happens. Okay, not in the roots or flowers. Okay, it happens right in the leaves. They are way important for this, and we're going to zoom in on a leaf. Okay, you look at some of the cells of the leaves, you'll see these little green things, which are called chloroplasts, and they are way important as well. Okay, their main job is going to be to soak in that carbon dioxide and the water, to ultimately create some of these other things that we're going to talk about, okay? And I put here chlorophyll. We're getting even deeper now. Chlorophyll is the reason plants are green, okay? There's this pigment, and their main job is to soak in the sunlight, okay? So these little guys are chloroplasts, and within them are some chlorophyll as well, which are important for soaking in. Okay, so make sure you get this. The leaves, okay, they soak in the carbon dioxide and the water, and they also take in some sunlight, which we'll talk about. And when they're done, they are the ones who get rid of the glucose and the oxygen. They're the ones who make that happen. Okay, so this kind of shows what I just said, right? Plants take in sunlight, that extra water from you and from the rain and from everywhere else, and the carbon dioxide that we breathe out. And they literally emit oxygen so we can breathe, and there's sugar stored inside of their cells as well. This here shows both the formulas that we have, okay? Carbon dioxide plus water plus sunlight equals glucose and oxygen. That's photosynthesis right there. And you should notice here, it's basically the same thing, only a little bit flip-flop. Glucose and oxygen is what our body needs, and we make carbon dioxide, water, and then, you know, we don't make sunlight, but we make energy. So this is why you're going to see a lot of times they say that like we get energy from the sunlight, because we're really in some way transforming that energy into being used for us. And I want to point this out. Sometimes you'll see the word energy as ATP, especially at a higher level science. You'll see the energy is really ATP. And this kind of shows how it's all connected. It's just so great how the plants and animal cells really work together. So basically, it's just this crazy cycle. It's going over and over and over again. We make energy and carbon dioxide and water. They take it in, then use sunlight to make glucose and oxygen and come in. We get energy. And like I said, it just goes over and over and over again. And sunlight comes in and energy comes out. And it's just a great process. And thank goodness that we have that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any energy at all. Okay, so let's sum it up. You heard a whole lot of fancy things. Okay, we get energy by taking in glucose and oxygen. And in our mitochondria, they make energy. And then we exhale carbon dioxide and some oxygen, and that's what plants use to ultimately go through photosynthesis in their chloroplasts of their cell. All right, so that basically sums up photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Thanks for listening.